Medieval brutality in modern Iran. Authorities amputate fingers for theft. In a striking example of archaic punishment practices, Iranian authorities have recently sentenced two individuals to finger amputation for theft, as reported by the human rights network HRANA. This act is part of a broader trend of using corporal punishment in Iran, where over 130 people have suffered finger amputation in the past 23 years. Amnesty International's deputy director for the Middle East and North Africa, Diana Eltahawy, condemned these practices, stating, quote, "These amputations are particularly harrowing displays of the Iranian authorities' contempt for human rights and dignity." She highlighted that such punishments are often inflicted on impoverished individuals lacking proper legal representation. El Eltahawy, sorry, further emphasized the urgent need for international intervention, warning that, quote, "with impunity rife in Iran, more and more people will be subjected to this unspeakably cruel punishment unless the international community takes action." The Islamic Penal Code in Iran sanctions a variety of brutal punishments, including amputation, which is carried out using a guillotine. So I wanted to cover this because we were talking about this recently, and a bunch of people in the live chat like didn't believe me when I said that this was a thing.
Oh, really?
And yeah.
Oh, yeah, it
And
is. It's completely a thing.
and then like literally a week or two later, this comes up in the news that this is another sentence that they are moving forward with. Um so I wanted to talk about this because I want people to understand that when we are engaged with negotiations with the Islamic Republic, that this is not a normal state. This is not, oh, just another nation state, blah, blah, blah. This is an abnormal actor, as evidenced by the fact that they carry out judicially mandated torture, of which this is an example. And a lot of times, this is supposedly carried out in a medical setting by doctors. There are instances where people who've had their fingers amputated by the authorities almost die because of the infections that they received afterwards. And my understanding is that their method of amputation is basically they take off 4 fingers but leave the thumb. That's my understanding. Um, but Armin, what do you know about these amputations?
So, two things. First of all, if you're stealing in Iran, make sure you steal a lot of money, right? Because right now there's many cases of corruption that have come out where people are stealing billions, and I'm not making this up, billions of dollars from different private companies and government organizations and stuff. And if it's that much money, nothing will happen to you, right? If you steal a sheep or some food or a little bit of money because your family is starving, and then they will cut your fingers. But if you're one of those elite that is stealing a ton of money, then this will not happen to you. And this is something that even religious people are getting really pissed off about right now in Iran. They're like, why do you only do this to poor people? Like, this is so objectively bizarre that why when only poor people steal, they lose their fingers. And it's so backwards because when rich people steal, you think like, okay, you had a crap ton of money, but you were just so greedy that you had to get more. But when poor people are stealing and you give them the worst, harshest punishment, they it's because you have failed them. He's stealing because you have failed this man as a government. This is your fault. And instead of looking at yourself and like, what have I done that somebody needs to go steal to be able to feed his family, right? You cut off the only means that he has to maybe one day work and provide his family. Like, you not only you don't fix yourself, the only method, because you took his hand, you took his tool to be able to maybe one day work and not have to steal. Like, instead of trying to lift him up from a position that he has is poor enough to be able to have to go steal to provide for his family, you make sure that there's no way out for him. What is he supposed to do? He can't lift things anymore. He can't type on keywords anymore. He can't become a barber. He can't do anything. So he's in poverty, and now you make sure that he remains in poverty. It's the most it is backwards in so many different ways. It's backwards in the sense that only poor people get this. It's backwards in the sense that these people don't deserve it because you fuck the society so much that he has to do this. It's backwards in the sense that instead of lifting these people up so that they don't have to lift them out of poverty, in other countries, when people go to jail for stuff like this, they have they teach them things. They in jail they give them skills so that once they're out of prison, now they have new skills that they could work. They could be a
Or like help
functioning
them
member of
finish their
society.
education. Yeah.
Yeah, they help
Get a
them finish their
degree.
education. Like, we can like you don't at least, if you can't do that, at least don't do the opposite. It's just, and it's so obvious. Like, this is so, they continue to do this, even though it's so obvious, even to most religious people in Iran, that this is backwards. So, and the question is why? If it's so, Susanna, what do you think? Like, they're not. I mean, there's people that work in the Islamic Republic in the government. Unlike what most people think, they're not. They're not idiots. Okay, they're evil, but they're not idiots. If this does not work, why do you think they do this? Why do you think is the game theory behind making sure that they continue to conduct evil acts like this?
Well, a show of force, a show of power, in
Yes.
inducing fear in the population. And what's so funny is that I've actually seen videos of American imams defending Sharia law, saying that Sharia law is actually more humane than systems of justice, say in the United States, because in America, what they do is they send you to jail for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And then when you leave, you are stigmatized in society for being an ex convict, right? But this imam was saying that, oh no, it's actually Sharia that is more humane because you come and we give you your punishment physically, and then you are allowed to go back into society. You've paid your punishment. So everything, we're good now, and then you can go back into society and raise your children. You're not going to miss out on raising your children, and you can contribute economically and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, what about situations like this? You think that this guy can contribute economically? You think he's going to be any better at taking care of his kids? Are you dumb? Like, and a lot of people that defend Sharia law, they use these arguments that basically try to take, it was so interesting when they defend Sharia law because they are essentially adopting liberal principles of harm reduction to
Mhm.
make arguments in favor of Sharia law, which itself is very interesting. Um, but even when doing so, they explicitly acknowledge that the reason why it works and reduces crime rates, according to them, is because of essentially the fear in the population. So even these kind of like liberalized or like rationalized arguments in favor of Sharia that I've seen from dozens of Muslim channels and websites acknowledge that no, 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 it's the fear that makes this work.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
By the way, Zaid, I do disagree with you here. Zaid is saying this is not Islamic. During the period when Omar was the Khalifa, there was a famine and Omar stopped carrying out the theft punishment. Well, I mean, Omar doesn't represent Islam. The Quran represents Islam. The Quran says, I would say that the Quran is actually even more barbaric than this, because they're cutting the finger. The Quran says cut the hand. So I think that, I mean, technically you're supposed to cut out the entire hand, not just the fingers. So
Look at how
again,
progressive they are.
yes, yeah.
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 Um,
We got two.
got a few super chats.
Oh no, we
Shami
got one
gave us
super chat, but because
yeah.
because the super chat is referring to the previous super chat, I went back and started the other one as well. But go on.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Shami gave us the super chat saying what Uzair Jibril said, referring to Uzair Jibril's statement again about his jihad about against religious mind manipulations. So we
Guys, by the
have
way,
two
again, thank you.
comrade jihadis in live chat.
Thank you again, everyone, for the super chats. Again, I just wanted to remind you that we have been demonetized within the first 3 minutes of the show. So all these super chats really do help us continue the show. Here, let me show you. I'm just refreshing to see if I have submitted an appeal. And again, the way the appeal for the demonetization works is that it takes a couple of days for them to review it. And usually these shows, they get most of their views at during the first couple of days, and by that time, even if we get the monetization back, it's just way too late. So again, thank you everybody for all the super chats. And if you can't use the super chat, at least make sure you like the stream. Thank you very much. Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do. And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.